So why are things not going well in places like the Hunter, but going superbly in states such as Queensland and WA, resource-rich states?
He's got plenty of front, Scott Morrison, doesn't he, Pete? He's spent his whole political life working against working people. The most recent example was his vote here in the Parliament, or not his vote, his legislation to override the court's support for coal miners on the issue of casualisation and labour hire. But we had a terrible vote on Saturday, Pete. Yes, Mark McGowan did very well under the Labor ban, but it was more about Mark McGowan than it was about Labor with respect to COVID. Anastasia Palaszczuk did very well not all that long ago in Queensland because she was able to demonstrate that they had a progressive suite of policies, but at the same time she got out to the regions and announced a big new $2 billion coal mining approval. She got to the gas projects and talked about the skills courses in TAFE for the resources sector. We need to be able to appeal to a broad coalition of people, Pete. But what people were telling us on the polling booths in the Upper Hunter on Saturday was that, you know, we support the coal mining. You say you support the coal mining industry, but we don't believe you.
Are you going to lose your seat, Joel?
Well, like every member of Parliament, Pete, I'm vulnerable. We're all vulnerable. None of us have a mortgage on our electorates. But, you know, on Saturday, we got less than half of the primary vote in places like Singleton that I was getting back at the 2016 election, and more than 10% less than I received at that disastrous 2019 election. So it's heading in the wrong direction, Pete. Our brand is in trouble. If we don't heed the warning, we'll go the way of the Kodak brand. We are facing something that looks a little bit like an existential threat here, but it's not too late, Pete. It's not too late for us to turn around and talk at least as much about those who work in the resources sector as we do climate change, to talk as much about those who are aspirational and get up and work hard every day as we do those who necessarily need a hand up. And of course, we have to take on racism and discrimination in all its forms, but not in a way which sends a signal to people that we're going to undermine their rights, that is the rights of the overwhelming majority of people who are only doing the right thing. And, you know, people said to me on Saturday, you know, I'm very suspicious. You say, you know, you're supporting the workforce in the Hunter region. You say that, but then on the eve of the election, you tell us that you're not even prepared to support a gas-fired generator in the region. And for them, that was Exhibit A, that we say one thing and do another.
So for starters, you know, to stop losing the likes of Hunter and Patterson, you've got to get behind that gas plant.
Well, of course we do. It's a gas plant that is capable of being converted to hydrogen when that hydrogen becomes available. It's a gas plant which will put downward pressure on energy prices. It's a gas plant that will keep Tomago aluminium operating. It was shut down 3 times, Pete, a fortnight ago because the energy wasn't available. How disastrous that could have been. So why wouldn't the Labor Party's recently updated national platform expresses strong support for the coal mining and gas industries. If we could just stick to what we agree at these national conferences, then we would be better placed.
Can you guarantee that you'll be running for Labor at the next election?
Peter, I've been here I've been in the Parliament 25 years. And I'm happy to put modesty aside and say that I was very warmly received on the polling booths on Saturday, despite what they were saying about some of our policy positions. I have the advantages of incumbency. I think that I'm in a strong position in Hunter. But what I've said many times, that, you know, I've been here 25 years and spent 6 in government. I believe the Australian people need a Labor government from time to time. And I want to deliver one. But I'm not going to stick around if we're going to continue to send these mixed messages or whisper our support for working people to lose again.
So what does that mean? You won't run, or you'll run as an independent?
Well, I'm busy fundraising, doing all the normal things you do as a campaign appears on the horizon. I'm working my electorate hard, as you'd expect me to do. I plan to run, Pete.
As
Pete, I'm almost 60 and been here 25 years and have been in the Labor Party almost 40 years. I'm too old to rat.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it's interesting if you can't give a guarantee that you're going to be running for Labor at the next election. So, I mean...
I will always... Well, nominations for my seat haven't been open, Pete. I plan to run. But I will always support the Labor Party, its key ideals and objectives. And for me, the key ideal and objective is equality of opportunity. And I want a Labor Party that loudly respects the work of those in the resources sector, which understands that coal is our second biggest export, which understands that in the Hunter region, up to 100,000 people and their families are dependent on the resources sector, as is the case in places like Central and North Queensland. And I remind your viewers, Pete, that the Hunter region, with some significant support from me, is leading the country on the renewables front. We have an investment pipeline which includes pumped hydro, battery storage, large-scale solar, and of course we're about to become a hydrogen hub. We have the University of Newcastle and the CSIRO in Newcastle driving the innovation. But Pete, 65% of electricity grid remains coal. And that electricity generation transition will be a determined but slow one. But the coal export industry, Pete, will be strong for decades to come. As we speak, they're building coal-fired generators in Asia everywhere, in big number. And we've got the cleanest and most efficient coal in the world, and we will keep selling it to those Asian markets for many, many, many years to come. So
when John Barilaro proposed on the weekend that you may well run, or you could run as an independent, has he got a point? Is he right?
Pete. Well, John Barilaro playing politics. Of course, you'd expect him to say that. I will not be running as an independent. I'll be either running as a Labor candidate or not running at all. But at this stage, I plan to run.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's quite a threat, isn't it, to not run at all?
Well, the alternative is to be untruthful, Pete. I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
That I want to run and I plan to run. And I'm raising money to run and I'm working like a member who's running. But I have doubt in my mind because I'm not so much concerned about my own electorate. I'm very confident about my own electorate despite the weekend's results. But, you know, I'm very, very keen to ensure that we embrace the people who have deserted us because at the moment, they're very sceptical of us, if not suspicious. And again, announcing our opposition to a big gas generation project in the Hunter region wasn't very smart and only reinforces their suspicion of us. But
I mean, that also it gives us, or it gives me an idea that you feel like you can't win if that's your mindset, if you're not fully behind it.
Pete, in northwest Tasmania recently, Labor secured, that's traditional working Labor, a traditional Labor area, we secured 26% of the primary vote. And in Tasmania wide, we secured 28% of the vote on the weekend. Labor got 1 in 5 people.
1 in 5.
And 1 in 5 people, and you know the other 5 found someone else and bagged the Labor Party on the way through to the polling booth because they feel that we've deserted them. Now, it's not just people in the Hunter region, there are plenty of those. And there are people in our capital cities of faith, for example, who feel that we're putting other issues ahead of their own right to worship and to maintain a commitment to their faith. And it's not just about coal mining, but more than anything, it's about safety and health of your family. And of course, it's about financial security. And we need to talk about that over and
listening to the inner city elites too much.
You might say that, Pete. I, of course, couldn't possibly.
Joel Fitzgibbon, are out of time, unfortunately, but good to chat. We'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure, Pete.